Hello and welcome back to Clockwork Noodles, the channel where Becca continues to break down the anime. It's an insane season, guys. I have to say that I am really loving the titles this season. We've got so many hidden gems out there. So many animes that I didn't initially expect anything of are really pulling out all the stops. Segue into my next sequence, guys. Make sure you are subscribed because I have a treasure for you, a gift for you guys for your continued loyalty. Tomorrow is the debut of my video, my midway anime review. It's going up tomorrow where I will crown my top 3 OPs, top 3 EDs, and my top 3 anime of halfway point. This is a little experiment for myself just to see how things change. Are the top 3 that I crowned, and I wrote the script and I've recorded it, it's been scheduled for about a week now, are they gonna change? Because a lot can happen in 6 weeks. Animes can get better, animes can improve, animes can also drop the ball. So some animes that I may have started really strong may not be on that list anymore. So I'm very curious to see how my list looks at the end of the big wrap up I do. That is going out tomorrow for you guys. There's 2 videos going out on the channel tomorrow. Lots of fun for you guys. Join the Discord channel to ensure that you never miss a video. You will always get a notification to your phone whenever videos are dropped. Some videos are going out a little later. Some videos are going out earlier than they would normally. Yesterday, 86 dropped at the same time as Vivi. I was up quite late into the night making sure that went out at the same time because I really didn't want to put stress on the schedule this week. That will also be the case next week as well, as I'm working a double weekend. So let's get to episode 6 because the whole episode is essentially set up for the next big chunk coming our way. It's almost a breathing period. It's all building up for next week, and I think we're about to kick off into something very interesting. This week, we are essentially dealing with the ripples, the aftermath. We're actually looking at Scotland Yard itself. Scotland Yard has decided to make an arrest. In the audience here knows that this man is not Jack the Ripper. We know who Jack the Ripper is. They have been dealt with, although we might see the guy I think is still behind the case next week. There were many arrests during the Jack the Ripper cases. Many people were standing trials, but there was never any evidence against anybody. As I told you guys, this is a cold case. Jack the Ripper has never been found. We don't know who he is till this day, whether he is a she or any of this. Seeing a actual fake arrest, it's quite nice because it does play into what was going on at the times, although I can't really tell you if they were making arrests for the sake of making arrests. We get a really nice sequence as well with Mycroft and Albert, where we get to actually see some beautiful voice talent going on. Just seeing these two together actually brushing up against one another. It's a really nice sequence. It also happens quite in low lighting as well, just showing you that it's going on behind the scenes. But it's also the perks of having Mycroft on your side. Today's mission is to free the innocent man, and of course there's something else that is very key, which we'll discuss at the end because it was the side effect or the hidden overall motivation for what was going on this week. This week we are going to focus in on a very important new character, one who was being teased up until this point. This is Patterson, our mole for Moriarty, our connection inside the yard, friend in high places. Having somebody this high up is very key, and of course what happens at the end, even better for Moriarty in the grand scheme of things. The pairing of seeing him and Lestrade is actually very nice, and I'm going to be saying Lestrade's name a fair bit this episode because it's a very nice episode for Lestrade, a character who isn't really considered a main. He's always a constant in Sherlock Holmes, but he's not exactly a main character. He's just there generally. But in this, he really does get to shine, and if anything, he's actually going to be my star player and my star mention at the end of the episode, but I'll tell you exactly why at the end. Our bad guy this time, we're going to go back to Arterton, and of course, when we first met him, showing his attitude in the sense that he didn't really care about the deaths of some prostitutes, I kind of figured that he would fit the villain role quite nicely. He is our bad guy. This time he isn't going to die, but again, we don't know if Moriarty's going to finish him off at some point. But he is the man we are trying to knock out of position this week. It's been a while as well since this formula has been used. Lestrade this week demonstrating his pride in his job, upholding his moral fibres, and it also makes sense, so it doesn't come out of the blue. It fully makes sense why Lestrade would be outraged by the idea of false evidence and framing an innocent person. It's a really nice look into his character, and I really like what I'm seeing with Lestrade, seeing this pride in his job, pride in his work, and him actually wanting to uphold and make Scotland Yard an honourable place in a sense. During the sequence with him and Patterson, however, it is subtle, but it is there. Patterson essentially manipulates Lestrade into getting the overall goal that he wants. He essentially wants Lestrade to take action and get Holmes into position, Holmes being our pawn at this point. Done. It is subtle though. We know this would work in Moriarty's favour, having Sherlock around, and Sherlock is a handy person to a diversion this week, a decoy in a sense. He essentially leads Lestrade, also hints at where the ledger actually is. Holmes being seen in a web. Let's talk about some iconology and some composition right now. The idea of being trapped in a web, being the one caught up in the middle. Sherlock is within the middle of seemingly two sides of a web at this point. And I've been mentioning it a few times now that Sherlock really feeling a bit sidelined, and I can mention this a bit further later down the line because something also happens this episode that made me feel very, very happy because I felt bad for saying it, but I feel happy after seeing this happen later on. Sherlock is caught up in this mess. It is an episode of new characters. We're going back to seeing Herder making another appearance as well. I can't really do much of a breakdown on the character, but I can say generally a character who is concealing their eyes. Eyes are the gateway to the soul generally as well. You can tell a lot about a character by seeing their eyes. Just by seeing the fact that he's hiding them away, we can generally say that Herder is a character who is a mystery. He's a character who is hiding things. He's keeping things pretty close to his chest at the moment. So to an anime only, we don't really know a great deal about him. He is a complete mystery. He is also pretty well kept for his job. He's a mechanic. Most of the time you'd expect a mechanic to not look as prim and proper as this guy does. And he is eccentric, which makes me like him even more. I do like an eccentric character. Generally, I would tell you the meaning of blonde, but within the world of Moriarty and Japan, often enough, foreigners from different countries will be shown with fairer hair. So at this point, it might just be the fact that a lot of our characters are blonde because it is taking place in a foreign country. The gun modification. I really like the gun modification. It shows us more about how smart and how maybe off the walls that Herder really is. You've got to be as eccentric to try some of these new things. But it is a gift to Bond, obviously a nice nod to the James Bond series as well, because Bond has quite a nice arsenal to his disposal. But it is a chemical weapon of sorts, so it has got a sleeping agent within it. So as well, this man knowing how to put together a sleeping agent or two. And no doubt, I knew we were definitely going to see this gun in action this week. Herder building a very modern for the time period car, just again showing the complete off the walls, breaking the boundaries kind of character he is. This is actually the age of invention. We are in the middle of an industrial boom right now. It is the Victorian period. A lot of us will know it as well for the Industrial Revolution that was going on. So seeing a Herder play into this a little bit as well and have that nod at the idea of Industrial Revolution and inventing things, it's really nice because he really does fit the overall theme of Victorian England, the idea of making things and modding things and trying to invent new and better cool things. I am very impressed that Bond has learnt to drive this new contraption ever so quickly. He's able to use it quite nicely and control it. There's no crashes, there's no accidents or anything. Obviously, it is again another nod to James Bond with the idea of snazzy cars and things. But this really is a cutting edge technology, so a little bit impressed and a little bit kind of just having to roll an eye quickly. It's a very snazzy entrance indeed. It is, however, a tad convenient for Bond that there is actually a drunkard here he's able to have a fight with. A little bit convenient, but it does work to the favour that we both get the characters we need within the building and they are now in position. That's probably the only variable in the whole thing. And as played, Sherlock is also now in position in the game. And this is a sequence that I now really, really want to refer to because it's essentially what I've been saying as well. Sherlock is 100% fully aware that he has been sidelined. He is aware that right now he is trapped within the palms of the Lord of Crime's hand. He can't act how he wants to act. I like the fact that we see him frustrated. We are seeing Sherlock absolutely frustrated because he can't do anything and he's getting more and more irritated because he's being played. Sherlock doesn't want to interfere and disrupt the Lord of Crime who is trying to rescue an innocent man, but at the same time, he is feeling very annoyed by the fact that he is being played. He's being pulled in. He knows he's being pulled into this game. He has no control over his own actions and fate right now, and it's frustrating him, and I really like the fact that Sherlock is self-aware. The anime didn't have to mention the fact that he's being sidelined, but it did. Sherlock being aware to this fact, I like it. I think I'm actually going to give some kudos to him as a character for this. I am most impressed with Lestrade this week, and I really have to just commend the character for standing up to Arterton, standing up to somebody who is bigger than you, more important than you, higher up in the chain than you, somebody as well that we know is very heavy-handed in his mannerisms. It's also somebody we know who could make his life very, very difficult for him if this falls apart. But we are seeing Lestrade's moral code, and him putting Arterton on the spot, also making him initially very uncomfortable and start sweating a bit, confronting him. And even when the violent nature starts to come out and he actually fully assaults poor Lestrade, it really does show us what an amazing character he really is. And I really have to hand it. I think he is my favourite character for this episode. He's showing us how flawed the Yard really is, showing us these unlawful actions taken by Arterton, but nothing will happen because Arterton right now is the law. What can you do when the problem is the law itself? Arterton's many crimes, obstructing the course of justice, tampering with the evidence, falsifying evidence, framing an innocent person, adds some assault to this as well. We know that he's roughed up a few people, so maybe that's GBA. Arterton is breaking quite a few laws right now, and I am very glad that he does eventually get what is coming to him. Also want to nod to the music in this episode. It is a fantastic new track. It just feels really twisted. The entire track feels so twisted. The twisted nature of Arterton, the desperation as well. Perhaps it's also showing us the twisted nature that Sherlock is now stuck within a web, and he's starting to feel a bit more desperate because he feels trapped. He's stifled. He can't act as he wants to act. He's now got to overthink everything. He's got to think about all his actions to make sure that he doesn't also interfere with the plan that is going on. The tension as Bond passes Sherlock. No reaction, no turn of the head, no nothing. But he knows it's his hint to leave. It's time to go. And he pulls Mum along with him. Patterson's initial lie and good old Lestrade finally getting his hands on the ledger is a bit obvious that this is a complete lie. It underplays Lestrade a little bit, that Arterton would no way have been that violent, that desperate over an empty room. The 3 letters CID in this anime, I believe this is just the stand-in for the CIA. Just a little clever little change. Obviously, the anime is adding words, occasionally changing words, like Bond has an E on it, just to avoid any troubles. All's well that ends well, right? The innocent man has gone free, Arterton has finally been removed from his post, and Sherlock now starts to once more go over the Robin Hood analogy. Sherlock can't figure out the fact that, was this really all just to release an innocent man? Or was there more to the events? Which is what I was kind of trying to look for. And I think I figured it out with Patterson as a character anyway, just because of how important he is and his role in a very high place. There is a Easter egg, a slight nod to Bond as well. Bond's drinking choice this episode. Just a nod to the whole shaken not stirred thing. Patterson also asking for to drink the Patterson that is named after him. I don't know if this one's more a coincidence or anything, but Richard Patterson, the master distiller, is also a man who knows his wines. He knows how to drink his whiskey. Little hidden Easter eggs going on here. Maybe a bit more that meets the eye here as well. But indeed, there was a hidden motive behind these events. These events were used to someone else's benefit. Patterson has indeed been promoted to Chief Inspector. He has now gone higher up the chain, which bodes very, very well for Moriarty, who has a friend in a very high place, and it's definitely going to make things a lot easier when he starts moving and he puts his initial plan into action. We get a nice little look of smoggy London once more with St. Paul's in the background. St. Paul's has been very iconic so far in promo, EDs, OPs. Perhaps it's foreshadowing or just the fact that Japan really likes to play on some of these iconic London landmarks in a sense. Everybody knows where St. Paul's is and know what St. Paul's is. I just want to believe that there might be a bit of foreshadowing going on here. We end on the scary line. The time to begin the official plan is nearing, guys. Let's break a few of my little bits and pieces down at the end. What did I overall think of the episode? I believe it was a very good episode. It feels like filler, but it also feels important. So it's important filler. It's a break before we go into something I think is going to be very heavy coming our way. We do see at the end of the episode that next week's The Merchant of London is definitely going to be kicking off. Milverton is coming our way, and I really can't wait to start seeing him starting the duel against Moriarty. Going to be very interesting to see what chaos he can bring up. It's a great episode, just seeing us moving some pawns, moving people around the board like a game. Sherlock sharing my frustration of being no more than a pawn this week as well. I like it because he shares how I feel. I feel very frustrated that Sherlock is unable to do really anything at this point. And I like the fact that the character also realises this. It's a nice little touch. Lestrade being a star character for me this week, seeing his moral fibre, standing his ground, taking a beating and not actually budging from his position that is unfair to frame somebody and it's unjust. Loving the fact that Lestrade really takes pride in the Scotland Yard that he wants to stand up for. It's a great wrap up in a sense to last week, so it's just tying up the loose ends from last week's episode before we go into The Merchant of London. I am very excited for next week. I am wondering if we are drawing upon the adventures of Charles Augustus Milverton, a short story in a sense. I'm very excited to see the character being brought back for this, changing a few bits and pieces, because initially Charles Milverton, or the King of Blackmailers in which he is known, he is a counter for Sherlock. In this retelling in Moriarty the Patriot, I get the feeling he's more a counter for Moriarty as opposed to Sherlock Holmes himself. It's going to be very interesting to see how this is retold, how this is going to be shown on the screen. I think I'm very, very excited for next week and I really can't wait to get to it. So a great episode, some great characters, great moments as well. Really enjoy seeing some of our new characters being brought to the front as well. Herder as well. In the books, he's not really got a name. He's there, he's mentioned, and often enough he's linked with Moran, but to see him actually become a fully fledged character and actually taking on a bit of life and having a character of his own, it's a really nice touch. I really like it, and I can't wait to see where we go next week. So thank you guys for your support. I will see you guys again very soon for next week, which definitely seems to be spicy, guys. Next week looks like it's going to be spicy. So join me next week for a good spicy curry. Bye, guys.